The Pacific Northwest, once described as the most unpredictable corner of North America, is a region shaped by storms, volcanoes, and rugged coastlines that challenged every explorer who entered it. Yet long before that, indigenous peoples had already lived here for centuries. Even today, this part of the continent still holds places few people ever reach. High in the mountains of British Columbia, Bradian remains abandoned after its mining industry collapsed, its buildings still standing as if the town paused itself decades ago. South of it, Brandywine Falls drops over a basalt cliff formed by ancient volcanic activity, a formation far older than the surrounding forest. And along the Oregon coast, Fort Clatsop stands as the winter refuge, where an expedition endured months of rain, hunger, and relentless challenge. Stay with me as we uncover the Pacific Northwest's most extraordinary wonders, where rare discoveries and forgotten mysteries might change the way you see this region forever. Kitsaw was built from scratch in just a few years to house workers mining a metal called molybdenum, which makes steel super strong. It was a fully planned modern town, with more than 100 homes, a hospital, shops, recreation centres, and a theatre, all meant to create a comfortable community for workers and their families. However, the entire town opened and then closed in only 18 months when the metal became worthless overnight. Behind a locked gate, caretakers kept the powered empty town spotless for more than 40 years, as if the residents might return tomorrow. Visitors can walk into homes and see furniture from the early 1980s, open closets with clothes hanging, and read names still written on scoreboards at the gym. Just across the mountains, in a different part of the Pacific Northwest, Pilot Rock rises from the ground like a giant finger pointing at the sky. It is a volcanic plug formed when thick magma cooled underground, and the softer rock around it slowly wore away, leaving it standing tall and solid. Unlike a volcano that erupts, its magma never broke the surface, so it became a frozen volcano neck, shaped by layers of erosion and earth movements. The sides show long columns shaped like hexagons and pentagons, cracked as the magma cooled and then tilted by the slow movement of the earth. Located inside a protected national monument, the rock allows hikers to scramble up for wide views of the surrounding valleys. Pilot Rock became a natural navigation point for early travellers because it stands far above the surrounding hills and can be seen for miles. Among these towering columns, the wild turkeys find shelter and nourishment in the surrounding forests. They walk slowly through open woods and meadows and scratch leaves to uncover bugs, seeds, and nuts. Males puff up their feathers, spread their tails, and gobble loudly to impress females. Nesting happens on the ground under bushes, where females lay eggs and guard them until the chicks hatch and learn to find food. Poults stay with their mother and quickly learn to dodge predators like foxes, hawks, and hunters. At night, they roost high in tall trees to avoid most predators, since their night vision is poor. Unlike other birds, wild turkeys have 28 calls to communicate about threats, food, or mates. When threatened, they flee with short flights, but can fight back with strong legs and sharp spurs if cornered. Their use of forests and open fields helps them survive despite changes from animals or human activity. From Pilot Rock, the presence of wild turkeys signals the flourishing life nearby, including mountain bluebirds. These birds have bright turquoise blue feathers on males, light underneath with white bellies, while females show duller blue wings and tail combined with grey on their breast, back, and head. When hunting for insects, they sit on high spots and then dive fast to catch their prey, like tiny acrobats in the air. They don't dig their own nests, but take over old woodpecker holes or cracks in rocks, sometimes even using man-made boxes or fence posts. While bluebirds animate the skies, the Snake River hosts a spectacle of its own, Shoshone Falls, which stands even higher than Niagara. At its core, the waterfall drops over a cliff of tough volcanic rock called rhyolite, which resists erosion and keeps it tall. In this canyon, the flow doesn't come from the main river alone. Underground springs push water through the rock walls and add to the falls even when the river runs low. Sometimes it shrinks a lot when water is sent upstream, and the roaring waterfall turns into just a thin stream until the river flows again. To early explorers, its unexpected size and force earned it the name Niagara of the West. Over the years, daredevils have attempted to cross the canyon using rocket-powered carts and other risky machines, with some barely clearing the gap. Locals claim to hear strange sounds emanating from the mist and spot mysterious shapes near the falls at night. Along the river below the falls, white pelicans dip their long bills into the water in search of food. They work as a team, swimming in circles to herd the fish into a tight group so they can scoop them up more easily. Their bill pouch can hold as much water as a small bucket, but they squeeze out the water and keep only the fish inside. Unlike some birds, pelicans don't store food in their pouches. They swallow their catch before flying away. When they rest in the sun, they flap their pouches to cool off, and the blood in their skin works like a natural air conditioner. Babies make noises inside their eggs before they hatch to tell their parents they are ready to come out. Their wings are made for soaring and gliding long distances during migration, so they can travel hundreds of miles with little effort. These seabirds don't dive from the air. Instead, they scoop fish from the surface with a gentle dip, similar to a fisherman casting a net. After the pelicans finish feeding along the river, the bullock's oriole takes flight in the nearby trees. It builds its nest by carefully weaving long strips of bark and grass into a hanging pouch that swings from the thin ends of tree branches, making it look like a natural hammock. These birds are known to eat grape jelly from feeders, and interestingly, parents feed their young this sweet treat while teaching them to leave the nest. When threatened, they shake their wings rapidly and flash white wing patches to warn rivals and predators. Despite their bright colours, their orange and black pattern helps them camouflage with the patches of sunlight and shadows in the trees. Jawbone Flats started as a mining camp where people hoped to strike gold, silver and copper, though the riches never truly appeared despite years of effort. Its name came from miners relying on their jawbone, or word, as credit when money was scarce, capturing how trust-driven and demanding life could be. Over time, the town took shape in the middle of a vast forest where giant old trees slowly reclaimed the rusty trucks, mining tools, and broken cabins left behind. The place is now an outdoor classroom where people learn about forest life and mining history right where it all happened, even though only one building survived from a massive fire. Mount St. Helens is an active stratovolcano known for one of the largest eruptions in recent history. Before the big eruption, the mountain swelled outward, like a balloon about to pop, caused by magma building up underneath. When the blast finally came, it sent a huge landslide crashing down the mountain and instantly melted snow and ice, which caused powerful mud flows that swept away everything in their path. Its crater now looks like a giant horseshoe, formed when the entire north side collapsed and left a raw, open face. Mystery surrounds the mountain, with reports of strange sounds coming from the crater and shifting ground that feels alive. The mountain keeps showing signs of life with smaller eruptions and earthquakes, which remind everyone it's still a powerful force. While the volcano shapes the land, the American mink lives quietly along the water's edge. With a long, thin body covered in dark brown fur and a small white patch on its chin, along with short legs, partially webbed feet, and a thick, bushy tail, it swims quickly and catches fish or frogs with ease. Its thick, oily fur keeps it warm and dry even in cold, wet weather. Minks stay close to streams and wetlands, mark their territory, and use old dens or hollow logs for shelter to remain safe from bigger predators. They also give off a strong, skunk-like smell when scared or excited, which helps deter many threats. While the mink moves close to streams, the dark-eyed junco makes its home in the trees above. This bird is a master of change and adapts quickly to its surroundings, and it stays in the same area year-round, or moves to warmer places when winters get harsh. Juncos forage mainly on the ground, hopping and pecking for seeds and insects, while staying alert for predators like hawks or cats. During the breeding season, males defend their territory with songs and display their white tail feathers as a warning to rivals. Females build a hidden nest on or near the ground, lay eggs, and both parents take turns feeding the chicks until they can fly. Their bright white tail tips serve as built-in signals that make the birds easy to spot, while their grey and brown shades help them fade into the forest floor around Mount St. Helens. Bradian was built for miners working a productive gold and silver mine, but it was abandoned when the mine shut down suddenly after gold prices dropped. It has become a ghost town with many buildings still standing, including houses, streets, power lines, and water hydrants, which makes it one of the most intact, abandoned mining towns around. Even though it is empty, the buildings feel alive with stories of strange noises and shadows, and Bradian is unusual because it still has working utilities like phone service and power lines. Years later, a couple bought the town and repaired the roofs and buildings, but the road is rough and it can only be reached during certain times of the year. Olympic National Park is famous for its mix of mountain peaks, glaciers, forests and coastline, all shaped by powerful natural forces over millions of years. Its mountains were formed from underwater volcanic rock and ocean sediments that were pushed up and folded into sharp peaks, some rising over 6,000 feet. The park's water systems include rushing rivers and plenty of waterfalls that create noisy, wet spots throughout the area. It also has one of the few places where glaciers cling low to mountainsides and survive despite warmer weather. At night, the dark sky reveals stars like no other and turns it into a perfect spot to see the Milky Way or a shooting star. The park's mix of land and water ends at the coast, where Ruby Beach offers towering sea stacks and lively marine life. At first glance, the sand shows a subtle reddish tint from tiny garnet crystals that sparkle under sunlight. The waves constantly carve the coastline, slowly reshaping the beach and the sea stacks that rise like natural towers. During low tide, tide pools uncover sea stars, anemones, and crabs that hide during high tide and emerge when the water retreats. Here, waves crash against sharp rock formations and create a wild, mysterious atmosphere that fills the entire beach. Visitors need to be careful, as the strong currents can easily pull someone in if they're not prepared. The beach's eerie, wind-whipped mood has inspired local stories about mysterious figures and ghostly sightings. From the crashing waves and sea stacks of Ruby Beach, it's a short drive inland to the quiet, green world of Hoh Rainforest. The constant heavy rain turns the forest's trees into towering giants covered in thick moss and lichen. On the forest floor, a tangled layer of fallen logs and ferns sustains the area's moisture and life. It shelters elusive creatures like Roosevelt elk and black bears, along with a variety of birds hidden in the thick greenery. Fog drifts through the trees and creates a mysterious atmosphere that inspires local stories and ghostly legends. Fallen logs act as nursery beds for new plants and show how life continues to grow after a tree falls. With each passing season, new growth appears beneath the towering trees and gradually leads toward the rocky coast of Rialto Beach. It is famous for massive piles of driftwood that the ocean pushes ashore during storms and that create natural wooden mazes along the beach. Strong waves and winds continue to shape the sand and rocks, slowly altered the shoreline. In these shifting sands, local legends tell of mysterious creatures moving among the driftwood, though no proof has ever been found. Fort Clatsop was a small log fort built by explorers to spend a rainy and cold season while preparing to head back home. It got its name from the local group of people who lived nearby and controlled the area by the river. The fort functioned like a busy little town, with cabins around a yard where more than 30 people lived and worked together. To survive, the explorers hunted elk, traded for food, made moccasins from elk hides, and even stole a canoe to carry their gear home. The fort eventually disappeared, but was rediscovered through old maps and stories. Life here could feel isolated, with the steady rain and the surrounding forest, causing the explorers to seem alone in a wild, listening world. The rebuilt fort, restored in 1955, and again after a fire in 2005, now allows visitors to walk through and imagine the challenges of surviving in this wet, remote place. Alongside the fort's history, explorers documented hundreds of plants and animals previously unknown to their world, leaving a record of their time at the river's edge. Glacier National Park was shaped by a powerful force called the Lewis Overthrust, where older, heavier rocks slid over younger, lighter ones, like a stacked deck of cards pushed out of order. As a result, this movement exposed some of the oldest rocks on Earth and revealed signs of early life. Across the mountains, layers of rock formed in different old seas create a mix of colours, each layer showing shades of red, green, purple, or beige. And some lakes shine bright blue or green because tiny rock bits ground by glaciers float in the water like fine dust. Chief Mountain appears to float, separated from surrounding peaks by erosion, almost like an island in a sea of rock. Over time, glaciers carved stair-step valleys, and hanging side valleys that often end abruptly over cliffs, forming dramatic drops and waterfalls. Today, the park's glaciers shrink rapidly and act like fading ice giants whose traces still mark the land. From these carved heights, water flows down into the Flathead River, carrying on the story of ice, rock and water shaping the land. Originating in the Canadian mountains, it winds through valleys shaped by glaciers into U-shaped gorges. It got its name from a European misunderstanding of Native American Sign Language, so explorers incorrectly called the Salish people Flathead, and the name stuck forever. Local tribes long told stories of a mysterious serpent living in the water, and travellers later reported seeing a huge eel with humps and glowing eyes. This supports a wide variety of stoneflies, which creates ideal conditions for trout, and attracting fly fishermen from around the world. Efforts to preserve the area led to the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, a landmark law protecting rivers from dams and development. The campaign to save this waterway showed how communities could successfully fight to keep rivers free and wild. Flowing past it, the route leads naturally to the clear waters of Lake McDonald, the largest lake in Glacier National Park. The lake's shoreline holds thousands of colourful stones that look like spilled crayons, thanks to minerals that rust or remain blue-green depending on their iron content. Its water stays cold enough to slow algae, which keeps the lake clearer than most large lakes where visitors can't see past a few feet. Local tales speak of strange noises and sudden disappearances, and these details add a quiet mystery that settles over the area's stillness. The lake fades in colour as it moves closer to Grinnell Glacier, a beautiful glacier framed by the surrounding peaks. It is divided into two sections. The upper resembles a salamander and changes very little, while the lower has shrunk dramatically over time. Tilted rock beds beneath the ice direct its flow mostly northeast, though it occasionally shifts course, like a slow-moving river. Rocks beneath the ice are cooked by magma, which transforms some layers into shiny marble, a rare process absent where lava cooled at the surface. As the ice retreats, the lake has expanded tenfold, and this expansion allows more water to collect. Water continues downhill to Grinnell Falls, where the glacier's melt plunges over cliffs in dramatic cascades. Grinnell Falls is fed by melting ice from the glacier, creating a steady flow of water that cascades down the rocky cliffs. The falls change depending on the season, sometimes slowing to a trickle, and other times rushing with force. Roslyn, built in 1886 by a coal company needing coal for its trains, quickly grew as high demand for coal drew miners from many different places. Interestingly, some argue that its name was inspired either by a distant place the owners once called home, or a cherished love interest dear to their hearts. It had one of the worst mining accidents in the region when a gas explosion claimed many lives, left families broken, and stood as a tragedy remembered for years. That same year, a wild bank robbery linked to famous outlaws gave the town dramatic stories in its past. The oldest bar in the area, the Brick Saloon, is known for being haunted, with visitors often sharing strange ghost tales. Later, this quiet town gained fame as the home of a TV show about a fictional small town far north, and Roslyn became a place where stories meet cameras and secured its place in popular culture. Cannon Beach is a coastal town known for its long sandy shore and unusual rock formations along the water. The area's rocky coast was formed when lava from nearby mountains flowed into the ocean and then slowly cooled and hardened. Strange sounds sometimes come from the ocean, caused by waves crashing through underwater caves and narrow rock channels. Locals say fog often rolls in thick and fast, hiding parts of the beach and making the air feel colder and heavier. The coastline is dotted with smaller stacks and sharp rocks called the Needles, which rise suddenly from the sea. Cannon Beach is best known for Haystack Rock, a towering formation that reaches 235 feet. It was created long ago when lava flows pushed through softer ground and left behind this tall tower of hard rock in the sea. Remarkably, it's one of the largest sea stacks in the world that can actually be reached from land. At low tide, visitors can walk up close and peek into tide pools filled with starfish, crabs, and colourful sea anemones. Climbing the rock is forbidden to keep its wildlife safe and preserve this unique spot for generations to come. Among the wildlife that lives around Haystack Rock, the tufted puffin stands out with its bright feathers and busy life. During breeding season, these birds wear flashy yellow tufts on their heads, almost like a fancy hat. Interestingly, they have a funny way of walking on water by flapping their wings quickly while sitting on the ocean surface, as if they are cleaning their feathers. Barkerville grew almost overnight when gold was discovered nearby, quickly transforming a quiet area into a busy town with miners, shops and saloons. It was not just any gold rush settlement. It had the largest community of Chinese residents in Western Canada, who ran many businesses and shaped everyday life. The town reached its peak quickly, but declined just as fast when the gold ran out, and the streets and buildings remained frozen in time. Barkerville survived a major fire that destroyed most of the settlement, yet it was rebuilt in only 6 weeks. The town lasted longer than most gold rush communities, with miners working there until the 1950s, before it became a preserved historical site. Visitors can still explore the old Chinatown, where half the population once lived, which offers a rare window into the lives of Chinese settlers. Its story moved fast and full of energy, but its structures preserve the history for anyone who walks along its wooden sidewalks. Mount Rainier National Park is centred around a massive volcano covered by the largest glacier system in the lower 48 states. The mountain has erupted multiple times, sending ash and rocks down its slopes and shaping the surrounding valleys and forests. Its glaciers carve steep crevices and deposit plains of sand and stones transported from higher elevations. The area is prone to lahars, fast-moving flows of mud and rock that can dramatically alter valleys in moments. Scientists monitor the shifting glaciers and ash layers to understand the mountain's changes and alert nearby communities to potential eruptions. Volcanic heat has formed ice caves within the glaciers, where enormous chunks of ice sometimes fall without warning. While Mount Rainier rises as a giant carved by fire and ice, Melmont tells a story of both ambition and decline. Once a bustling coal mining settlement, families quickly built homes to extract the dark mineral that fueled steam engines. The town featured tidy rows of houses, shops and eateries, all linked by rail lines that transported coal like arteries of a living machine sustaining the community. At its peak, Melmont was prosperous, but life underground was dangerous. Tunnels could flood or collapse, putting miners at risk. Gradually the town waned as cheaper energy sources replaced coal, and strikes and accidents drove workers and businesses away, leaving structures to deteriorate over time. As Melmont fades, the red-breasted nuthatch brings a fresh beat to the forest. This little bird can walk upside down on branches and even climb headfirst down tree trunks to hunt for insects hiding in bark cracks. It has a clever trick to keep its nest safe. It smears sticky tree resin at the entrance to block unwanted guests. Both the male and female work together to dig out their home in dead wood, then line it with soft grass and feathers to make it warm and comfortable. When food is scarce, they sometimes hide parts of their meal in bark cracks to eat later, which shows their smart planning skills. While the nuthatch climbs tree trunks, the American goldfinch prefers fields and gardens just beyond the forest. This bird changes the colour of its legs, feet and bill twice a year, shifting from dark grey-brown in winter to bright orange-yellow in summer. Its summer hue comes from eating plants with special pigments, so a goldfinch consuming different food may appear duller. Females build nests so tightly woven that they hold water like a cup, and heavy rain can turn them into tiny bathtubs if parents don't protect their chicks. Males wait until late July to start families, later than most songbirds, timing their babies to hatch when thistle seeds are abundant. On cold winter nights, these birds burrow tunnels under snow to sleep in cosy cavities or gather in evergreen trees to share warmth. They use their small beak and strong feet to hang upside down and rarely get tired during flight, which makes them almost look like someone bouncing a yo-yo in the air. When danger appears, goldfinches cooperate and send out special calls to alert friends like real-time warning system. Chesterfield is a ghost town that once sheltered tired Oregon Trail travelers, where pioneers traded fresh horses for dying ones and fed families who could barely walk another mile. Some homes were built with logs standing straight up like a fence instead of stacked sideways. During the harsh winter, it got so cold that many sheep froze, and the snow piled higher than most people. Summer brought its own terror. Swarms of grasshoppers swept through the fields as lightning repeatedly struck, burning buildings to ash and destroying crops. Chesterfield's population grew before the Great Depression cut it in half, and then kept falling until only a few people remained. Today, visitors can walk into the old general store where volunteers tell stories about their own families who lived there before everyone left. Garibaldi Provincial Park is a mountainous area filled with glaciers, turquoise lakes and hiking trails carved into volcanic rock. The park got its name from a ship captain who fired cannons to celebrate naming a mountain after an Italian soldier who never came anywhere near this place. Among its most remarkable features, the Black Tusk stands as a sharp volcanic spire left after glaciers wore away softer rock. A massive lava dam called the Barrier holds back a large alpine lake, but when part of it collapsed, a landslide reshaped the valley and forced people to move. Glaciers in the park act like natural water towers, slowly melting and feeding streams that fill lakes and valleys with clear water year-round. The volcanic rocks here cool down in hexagonal columns, a rare natural design that looks like nature's own brickwork. Hoary marmots live among the rocky slopes and alpine meadows, and their loud warning calls were so memorable that early settlers named a mountain after them. Their whistles don't come from their lips, but from their voice box, and they make 7 different sounds, including chirps, growls, and whines, to communicate with each other. Grizzly bears hunt marmots in spring, summer, and fall, and marmots provide one of the most important foods for their survival. To stay safe, each colony digs over 100 emergency escape holes across the hillside, so a bolt hole is always within reach, no matter where danger appears. These rodents hibernate for 7 months straight, sleeping underground through fall, winter, and early spring, before waking up hungry in May. After surviving another season in these high-altitude meadows, many marmots wander down toward Garibaldi Lake, where the turquoise water glows against the volcanic rock below. The lake's colour comes from tiny rock particles ground up by glaciers, almost like a natural paint that changes with the light. This lake lies behind a natural barrier, a giant dam formed when a volcano erupted straight into a glacier, and the lava cooled into a wall that trapped melting ice behind it. If that barrier broke, it could cause massive flooding downstream, but scientists say it's stable for now. Strange sightings have been reported in the area, including large wolves watching from trees and mysterious footprints that some say belong to legendary giant creatures. For hikers, the lake marks the start of many adventures, like the challenging trail leading to Wedgemount Falls, famous for its roaring waters and dramatic views. It plunges almost so high, it crashes down the mountainside with such force that you hear the roar long before you see the water. The waterfall is visible only for brief moments along the trail because trees block the view, so most hikers miss it entirely while watching their footing. Rockfalls happen without warning near the falls, with chunks of stone tumbling from cliffs above and landing exactly where hikers stood moments before. Just beyond those falls is Wedgemount Lake, a stunning glacial lake waiting to be explored. Its turquoise waters come from nearby glaciers, which carry tiny rock particles that colour the lake. The glacier shrank quickly and created new small lakes like Tupper Lake in the space it used to cover. The lake's water stays icy cold even on warm days, so swimmers feel the shock of cold the moment they touch it. The government wanted to rename the mountain Mount Vancouver, but everyone ignored them and kept calling it Wedge Mountain because of its distinct wedge shape. The area near the lake offers good spots for Canada geese to gather and stay safe, where they stand out with long black necks, white chin stripes, and grey-brown bodies. Furthermore, their strong wings let them travel far, sometimes from Alaska to Mexico, without stopping for days. Amazingly, they memorise river and mountain routes on their first trip and can lead younger geese back home years later. Pairs mate for life and raise goslings together, teaching them to feed, follow the group, and avoid danger. Moreover, goslings swim the day after hatching, and parents keep them close, teach them to graze on grass, and dip their heads underwater to find food. To stay safe, geese use open ground to spot predators, hissing or chasing intruders, and sometimes even dunking an animal's head in mud to protect their nests. When danger approaches, the whole flock honks and flies off together, with one bird's alarm triggering a coordinated escape. These geese are expert foragers. They use their notched bills to cut short grass and eat berries, seeds, or insects if other food runs out. Bayhorse is a ghost town trapped in a steep canyon so high and remote that miners almost gave up trying to work there before the town even started. Nobody remembers the prospector who found silver here, only that he rode 2 bay horses, so people called the place where the man with bay horses went, until it became the official name. An old tram system dangling from cables carried miners and ore baskets straight up the mountain to a camp where men lived year-round, even through winters that buried everything in snow. A massive red mill still clings to the hillside above town like it's frozen mid-collapse, visible from miles away and somehow not falling apart after more than a century. Beehive-shaped stone ovens cooked wood into charcoal for days at a time, and you can still walk inside them, where workers once shoveled burning logs. The government changed silver import rules overnight, and within 2 weeks over 300 workers grabbed their stuff and left, which left a busy town hollow and still. Smith Rock State Park stands out for its tall cliffs of volcanic rock, the remnants of a crater that collapsed long ago and formed a large bowl with steep walls. Over thousands of years, cracks and erosion sculpted these formations into a natural playground with tiny holes and edges for climbers to grip. Later, this site became the birthplace of modern sport climbing, where people first dared to bolt anchors directly into the rock. Even the river seems to play along. It cuts a dramatic path through the canyon and paints the valley with light and shadow. Some walls reveal bubble-like textures, traces of volcanic gases that cooled in place, like soda bubbles frozen in time. The park also boasts a wild side with rattlesnakes and falcons making their homes among the rocks. Sometimes yellow-bellied marmots dart from rock crevices and surprise hikers who sit just inches from the edge of a 400-foot fall. These marmots spend more than half their entire lives asleep underground, hibernating from late summer through early spring, longer than almost any animal their size. Pups stay hidden in burrows for a whole month after birth, never seeing daylight until they're big enough to defend themselves from eagles circling above. Their alarm whistles warn the whole colony when danger appears, and those sounds bounce off Smith Rock's cliffs like a siren going off in a canyon. One of their biggest threats comes from bobcats that stalk the boulder fields at dawn and dusk, ready to pounce on marmots that stray too far from their escape holes. To stay hidden while hunting, these cats have spotted coats that act as natural camouflage, which lets them merge with Smith Rock's shadows and rocks perfectly. When chasing prey, bobcats can leap forward more than the length of a car in a single bound, shutting gaps so fast that their victims barely have time to react. In addition, males claim territories big enough to fit several city blocks, while females defend smaller areas that often sit inside a male's range like nested boxes. They also mark their boundaries by scratching trees and leaving scent from special glands, which creates invisible fences that other bobcats can smell, but humans cannot detect. Sometimes they kill prey too big to eat in one sitting, so they bury the leftovers under dirt or leaves and come back for dinner the next night. What makes them truly remarkable is that they adapt to almost anywhere, from swamps to deserts to city edges, living in places where pickier predators cannot survive. Fort Nisqually was not really a fort, but a trading post for the Hudson's Bay Company, set up to trade furs and goods with native tribes and settlers. It was a place where different cultures met, but also where tension and conflict left stories of unsettled spirits and mysterious sounds that visitors sometimes report. The site once had log walls with pointed tops for defence, but today only 2 buildings from the original fort remain. One of them, the granary, is the oldest structure in the state, and one of only 2 Hudson's Bay Company structures still standing. People in costumes now demonstrate blacksmithing, cooking and farming exactly like workers did back when the fort connected Puget Sound to Europe, Hawaii, Russia and Asia. Hells Canyon National Recreation Area is known as North America's deepest river gorge. The Snake River carved its path through a high volcanic plateau and formed towering canyon walls from river to rim. Its walls are made of layers of volcanic rock and basalt lava flows that still show signs of volcanic activity. The canyon remains mostly wild and empty, with no roads inside, so a visit feels like stepping into a huge, untamed arena shaped by raw natural forces. Visitors move from the river to the rim and experience 2 very different climates, a scorching desert below and a freezing forest above. The wild areas of Hells Canyon provide an ideal home for raccoons, often called nature's little bandits, because of the distinctive black mask of fur across their eyes. These animals are most active at night, as darkness keeps them safe from predators, and their sharp night vision, sensitive paws and keen hearing help them find food while other animals sleep. In addition, their front paws are highly sensitive, almost like tiny fingers covered in sensors that detect details even underwater. To make the most of this ability, they dip food in streams not to clean it, but to help their delicate paws work more effectively as they find shells, bones, or spoiled bits. Moreover, these clever animals remember puzzle solutions for years and solve tricky latches again and again, revealing their sharp intelligence. They eat a wide variety of food, from fish eggs to carrion to discarded scraps, and adjust their diet to the seasons along the Snake River. Port Gamble was a company-owned lumber town where the mill operated continuously for decades and surpassed nearly every other sawmill in the region. The town was built to mirror the owner's hometown in Maine, with houses and churches copied so precisely that workers felt transported back east. Lumber from the mill reached ports worldwide, including Shanghai and South Africa, and transformed trees from the Olympic Peninsula into buildings on distant continents. The town has a reputation for hauntings and hosts the largest ghost conference on the West Coast, which draws people who explore buildings at night in search of spirits. Lucille Lake is a quiet mountain lake surrounded by forest, popular for hiking and known for its calm, reflective water that mirrors the sky and trees. Despite being small, this is a spot where rain and snowmelt collect and supply streams that flow into bigger rivers far below. As the slopes climb from dense forests to rocky outcrops, the lake below provides changing scenery for hikers. It has no amenities like trash cans or bathrooms, which keeps it feeling pure, but challenges visitors to practice leave no trace. Local stories speak of how the lake can suddenly mist over in ways that hide shapes just beyond sight. The quiet waters near Lucille Lake provide a perfect home for river otters, who slide and swim with ease. In fact, they can hold their breath underwater for several minutes, diving and hunting where most animals would struggle to stay submerged. Their thick fur also traps air, much like a built-in life jacket, to keep them warm even in freezing mountain lakes. To stay safe, otters build tunnels with secret underwater doors that protect them from predators like bears and wolves. During winter, they dig trenches through ice or beaver dams to create breathing spaces, sometimes altering the environment to survive. Males roam large territories, while females occupy smaller zones nested within the males' areas. When hunting, they bring food to shore before eating, using rocks as makeshift tables to handle their prey. Mothers teach their babies to swim by guiding them into the water and showing them how to paddle. Unlike sea otters, these freshwater animals spend much of their time on land, which turns them into true land and water hunters. Fort Stevens began as a simple dirt fort, constructed during the Civil War to protect the mouth of the Columbia River from naval attacks. It was named after General Isaac Stevens and grew into a complex military base with large concrete guns protecting the coast through 2 world wars. One of the wildest moments came in World War II when a Japanese submarine shelled the area, which turned it into the only military base in the lower states to face enemy fire. The fort's design included moats, drawbridges, and thick earth ramparts meant to stop land and sea invasions. Today, it's a state park where visitors can explore old gun batteries, tunnels, and a museum that tells real stories of military life. Local ghost stories speak of soldiers' spirits and unexplained noises inside the old barracks and batteries. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve protects a mix of coastal rainforests, sandy beaches, and marine waterways on Vancouver Island, which formed a zone where ocean meets forest in wild ways. It includes 3 main areas: the endless sandy Long Beach, a maze of small islands in the Broken Group, and the challenging West Coast Trail through thick forest and cliffs. One surprising fact is that the park is a major stop for grey whales, where thousands pass by each spring on a journey to colder northern waters. Killdeer nest along the beaches and meadows near the shore, and lay their eggs right on the sand, where waves almost reach them. These birds are the greatest actors in nature, faking broken wings and limping around, crying in fake pain to trick foxes, cows, and even people into following them away from their babies. Babies leave the nest immediately after hatching, born ready to run and find their own food without ever being fed by their parents. They learn to hunt by following their parents and copying how they catch insects and worms. Killdeers shake one foot in shallow water to make worms wiggle out of the mud, then snatch them before they escape. These birds are adaptable, nesting far from water in places like parking lots, farm fields, and gravel rooftops. In hot weather, adults dip their chest feathers in water, then return to their eggs to keep them cool. Originally, Bergdorf started as a small gold mining town before it became famous for its natural hot springs, which flow from the earth at high temperatures. These springs are large enough to swim laps in, and their water stays warm naturally throughout the year. Surrounding the area, old pioneer-style log cabins without electricity or running water give visitors the feeling of stepping back in time. Bergdorf is so remote that in winter, travellers often arrive by snowmobile, turning the journey into an adventure before reaching the warm pools. The place got its name from its founder, Fred Bergdorf, though it was once simply called Resort, because no one could think of anything more creative. Now the original cabin stands beside abandoned hotel buildings, and the area has become a ghost town where visitors can soak in hot springs amid forgotten history. Glacier National Park features rugged mountains shaped by glaciers, some of the largest glacier groups in the region, which carve valleys and feed rivers with fresh meltwater. One of the park's most famous glaciers drops far from its snowfield, and it creates crevasses and cracks that shift each year. Trails in the park lead visitors through mossy forests and alpine meadows full of wildflowers, and give quiet moments along with chances to see local wildlife. The park also includes mysterious limestone caves filled with a rare substance called moon milk, a milky white paste preserved by bacteria living inside. In winter, heavy snowfall requires special snow sheds to protect the nearby railway from avalanches, while in summer, the same slopes turn into abundant feeding grounds that draw grizzly bears out of the trees. As the seasons shift, these giants dig up glacier lilies, tear open ground squirrel burrows, and churn through avalanche chutes in search of roots, mushrooms, and animals. Beyond plants and small prey, they also scavenge elk and make use of whatever the harsh mountains provide. Their behaviour shows remarkable intelligence. Grizzlies in the area have sharp memories and clever problem-solving skills, often using rocks or logs as tools to reach food other animals cannot access. By fall, they enter a feeding frenzy, eating nearly non-stop to build the fat reserves needed to survive months of winter hibernation without food or water. Inside their dens, cubs are born in complete darkness, and mothers go 3 months without eating, while nursing and warming 1 to 3 tiny newborns. When the snow finally melts, bears follow the rising berry crop higher up the slopes, sometimes climbing so far they cross old glacier trails and return with blue tongues from feasting on wild blueberries. From the mighty grizzly bear to the tiny American pika, the mountains are home to a fascinating range of creatures, perfectly adapted to the changing seasons. They look like hamsters with round ears, but they are actually close relatives of rabbits and live in piles of broken rocks, high on freezing mountain slopes. Pikas don't hibernate, so they spend all summer cutting plants like tiny farmers, then stack them in piles, called haystacks, to dry like hay before winter buries everything under snow. Each guards its own pile of rocks like a fortress, screaming high-pitched alarm calls and chasing away any other pika that tries to steal territory or food. Their thick fur covers even their feet and toes, acting like built-in hiking boots that grip snow and ice, while their paw pads turn black in winter for extra protection. Originally, the witch's castle began as a simple public bathroom and covered picnic spot in the woods. Over time, teenagers gave it its spooky nickname decades after it was abandoned, even though no witches ever lived there. The crumbling stone walls, stripped of their roof when the Columbus Day storm of 1962 smashed Portland and wrecked the water pipes, came to resemble a castle, which helped cement its eerie reputation. After years of neglect, thick moss grew over the structure, like a fuzzy green blanket, and it turned the ordinary bathroom into something that looks like a fantasy movie set. Snake River Canyon is a long, narrow path known for its steep rock walls and cool pools of water. Its dramatic shape formed from powerful volcanic lava flows that once dammed the river, followed by massive floods that broke and moved huge boulders like a giant's puzzle. Some of the rocks here are so unusual, they look as if they belong on the Moon or Mars, created by violent underground steam explosions. Even today, the canyon evolves, with cliffs and waterfalls revealing the river's wild energy. Adventurers find the area perfect for hiking, rock climbing, and discovering hidden surprises tucked between the hard stone. Flowing from the depths of Snake River Canyon, the Snake River continues its path with unyielding force. It cuts through volcanic rock left by massive lava flows and winds past towering basalt cliffs formed by underwater eruptions. Some formations sparkle with tiny glass crystals, traces of steam blasts from past explosions. The river still shifts in places, shaped by landslides and unstable rock walls, and its whitewater rapids challenge rafters to navigate roaring currents between rough cliffs. Govan began as a small farming and railroad hub, but today only a few buildings remain. The town's decline followed a devastating fire that destroyed much of its business district, along with the closure of its school and post office. Local tales claim the old schoolhouse is haunted, with sightings of the ghost of a devoted teacher. Its dark history includes one of the most gruesome murders in the county, an axe attack on a judge and his wife. Its saloon was also the site of unexplained violence by mysterious gunmen, and some murders remain unsolved. Now Govan's empty streets and crumbling buildings give it the eerie feel of a town frozen in time, full of secrets waiting in every abandoned corner. Painted Hills is a place made of colourful hills with stripes of red, yellow, and gold soil. These colours come from layers of earth that changed over time because of weather and volcanic ash blowing in. The hills change colours when it rains or when the sunlight hits them just right, almost like a mood ring. This place feels like a peek at a planet, not from around here, because its layers show a story told in colours instead of words. Underneath the colourful surface, these hills hold fossils of plants and animals that lived long before people, almost like a record of life and climate change. It is named one of Oregon's 7 wonders because nowhere else in the state shows this kind of bright, layered geology all in one place. Monte Cristo started as a silver and gold mining boomtown tucked into the Cascades, where prospectors created a settlement in harsh mountain terrain. The problem was that the deposits sat only near the surface, so anything deeper than 500 feet produced almost nothing, and later massive floods wiped out the railroad and tunnels. Over decades, waves of owners tried to revive the town, but unpredictable geology and financial crashes left mines empty and machinery abandoned. Eventually, avalanches buried the last active mines, quieted the once deafening mills forever, and left Monte Cristo as a ghostly collection of stone ruins and rusted tramways. Idaho Falls began with a man-made waterfall that turned a plain river into a giant staircase of rushing water right through the middle of the city. Locals say the falls never stay the same for long. The water shifts and folds in ways that look almost like the river is rearranging itself on purpose. Stand close enough and the ground feels like it hums, as if the falls are a huge engine running under your feet. In winter, the spray freezes into strange shapes that look like walls, bowls and towers, as if someone sculpted the river overnight. Birds use these icy shapes like launch pads and drive straight into the steam clouds rising off the water. Fishermen love this spot because the churning water acts like a giant buffet line for hungry fish. The stretch of Idaho Falls running through downtown isn't just a scenic spot, it's a hotspot for rainbow trout that can be seen darting below the churning water. These river dwellers grow powerful in the fast currents that tumble down like a giant staircase. They can shift their colours to match the stones below, almost like slipping on invisible cloaks to avoid danger. Quick and alert, they snap up insects and smaller swimmers with sudden, precise strikes. When breeding season arrives, they scoop out shallow gravel pits where their eggs can rest safely. Catching one becomes a test of patience and skill, since they quickly learn to avoid anything that feels too easy. While trout rule the water, muskrats claim the riverbanks, constructing dome-shaped lodges with underwater entrances that keep predators out. They also build floating rafts of plants to climb out and eat, which turn the vegetation into tiny dining tables. Beyond their lodges, they dig out food gardens and reshape the banks to build safe, functional homes. Muskrats move through hidden underwater tunnels, hold their breath for long dives, and use stiff hairs on their feet and flat tails to cruise swiftly. They chew tough plants like tiny demolition experts, but will also grab crayfish or mussels whenever the chance arises. Meanwhile, mothers raise large litters of babies who learn to swim and forage quickly while dodging predators like mink, otters, coyotes and foxes. Glacier Bay National Park stretches across a massive wild world where glaciers, fjords and rainforests collide. The valley was once drowned in solid ice that pushed forward and swallowed forests, villages, and everything in its way before pulling back. Now, huge walls of ice meet the sea and break apart with booming crashes that shake the water. Some glaciers uncover brand new land as they shrink, while others split into giant frozen chunks that drift away like floating towers. Among the booming ice and crashing water, the stellar sea lion patrols the bay and adds life and power to this frozen world. Here, they haul out on bare rock ledges beside tidewater glaciers, and the cold air and icy water help keep their thick blubber from overheating as they rest between hunts. Meanwhile, they don't do long migrations. Instead, they shift their home base haul-outs as fish schools move, so the whole colony slides along the coast to stay close to the best feeding spots. Females return to familiar rookeries year after year, giving birth on wave-splashed rocks where pups must learn to swim quickly or risk being washed away. While hunting, they take herring, salmon, cod and octopus, sometimes swallowing prey whole before sharks or killer whales can steal it. Their main threats come from predators, fluctuating fish populations, and human fishing, which can reduce food supplies. What sets Steller sea lions apart is their huge size and pale fur, the largest eared seals in these waters, with roars that slice through wind and glacier noise, like a foghorn. Tillamook Rock Lighthouse, known as Terrible Tilly, sits alone on a basalt rock a mile off the Oregon coast, constantly battered by fierce waves and storms. Building it took over 500 days on the slippery rock, with one storm wrecking the supply house and leaving workers stranded without food or water. Keepers worked in shifts shorter than usual because the remote location and awful weather made mental and physical strain unbearable. Before the lighthouse lit its first beam, a sailing ship crashed nearby in thick fog, killing its entire crew. Only the ship's dog survived and turned into an eerie local legend. Lolo National Forest covers a huge area with a mix of forests, rivers, lakes and mountains that change from dry grasslands to dense woodlands. Among these wild areas, the forest holds record-sized trees like the biggest ponderosa pine in Montana and a co-champion western larch, which shows the range of its giant plants. It also has more than 300 kinds of birds, over 60 types of mammals including bears, mountain goats and wolves, and lots of fish swimming in its rivers. Because of its shifting weather, dry and moist climates create unique conditions that let many different plants and animals live side by side. With over 700 miles of trails and hundreds of lakes, Lolo offers a range of experiences from easy day hikes to backcountry adventures, where every path reveals new secrets of Montana's wild country. From the highest peaks to the river valleys, mule deer navigate this changing terrain with ease and grace. They got their name from oversized ears, about 3/4 the length of their head, that help detect danger from far away. When threatened, they bounce off all four legs at once, leaping over rocks and logs and running up steep slopes to escape predators like wolves, coyotes and mountain lions. Every winter, the deer travel from high uplands to lower valleys along the routes their mothers taught them as fawns. Male deer grow tree-like antlers, shed them each winter, and in spring fight by locking antlers until one gives up. When looking for food, they carefully select the most nutritious plants, berries, and even partly rotted leaves, passing over tough growth to find tender shoots. While they browse the forest floor and meadows, the pileated woodpecker drums on trees above in search for insects hidden in the bark. By using its long, barbed tongue, it can reach deep into tunnels to scoop out ants and larvae. Its striking black plumage contrasts with bold white stripes on the face and neck, and a bright red crest tops its head. Males have red stripes on the cheeks, while females display a shorter crest with red only on top, and both have yellow eyes. They defend territories year-round by using loud drumming that echoes across the forest and can carry for half a mile. These birds work in pairs to build nests inside dead trees, and they form large cavities that later provide homes for owls, bats, and squirrels. When threatened, they flash rapid head movements and wing flaps to scare predators, and if that fails, strike with their powerful bills. In addition to ants, they feed on fruits and nuts, foraging on logs or even visiting bird feeders during harsh winters. Warren started as a gold mining town after rich gold deposits were found along Warren Creek, which turned it into one of the largest mining camps in the area. Over time, the gold proved buried far below the surface and spread out over many miles, unlike the shallow deposits nearby, so miners kept working the land for years. Eventually, mining stopped during World War II when national gold mining efforts were paused, and the town became a ghost town full of mining stories and forgotten riches. Warren survived as a tiny mountain village with only a dozen year-round residents, accessible by a long dirt road where summer visitors explore what's left of Idaho's oldest gold camp. Silver Falls State Park is Oregon's largest park and is famous for the Trail of 10 Falls, where visitors can walk behind waterfalls like the 177-foot South Falls. The trail loops through a mix of towering Douglas firs that stand like green skyscrapers, ferns brushing the path, and moss-covered rocks that glow bright green. Each waterfall has its own shape. Some drop in narrow streams, others like wide curtains of water, and a few cascade over mossy stones. Visitors can hike, bike, horseback ride, or picnic, with over 35 miles of trails for all skill levels, weaving through varied terrain from rocky canyons to forest floors. Among the trees and trails, visitors might spot the quick, watchful black-tailed deer moving quietly through the forest. They move mostly at dawn and dusk to avoid predators, using thick forest cover for protection, while their large ears and dark coats help them hear danger and stay hidden in the shadows. Black-tailed deer are mainly browsers, feeding on young shoots, leaves, and even fruits, which shapes the forest plants by creating clear browse lines on shrubs and trees. Body started as a small mining camp near Toroda Creek and expanded quickly after gold deposits turned it into a town with a 10-stamp mill, grinding ore day and night. The town prospered under the Wrigley brothers, famous for their chewing gum empire, who boosted production and built the area's first electric plants. Despite fires and financial ups and downs, this town produced over $1 million in gold before shutting down permanently. Many original cabins, mills, and mining equipment remain scattered along the road, their rust and rot frozen in time like an old forgotten movie. Ghost stories linger around Bodie, with locals speaking of strange noises, flickering lights, and phantom miners who seem to wander the ruins when the sun sets. Joffrey Lake's Provincial Park is famous for its 3 glacier-fed lakes that shine in a surreal, turquoise colour, caused by fine glacial silt floating in the water, which reflects sunlight like tiny natural mirrors. From there, the lakes appear one after another like steps, with each one higher than the last and connected by a hike that moves through different worlds of stone, ice and water. Along the trail, the area stays small in size, yet delivers dramatic changes, from thick pine forests to bare rocky slopes, all compressed into one wild, natural playground. The cold water shelters tiny creatures, adapted to survive where few others can, and mountain goats navigate cliffs too steep for humans. Because of this rough conditions, the park's fragile ecosystems make travel beyond the lakes risky without special equipment and skill, as the glaciers and slopes can shift without warning. At the top, visitors reach Mattia Glacier, where the icy roar makes them feel like they have stepped to the edge of the world. The glacier moves slowly but with immense force, pushing downward in massive ice blocks that can crack loudly or drop without warning. Along the way, unusual red and copper-coloured ponds appear, strange pockets of colour that stand out against the pale stone. Cold runoff from here fills the lakes below and carries fine particles of ground-up rock that give the water its vivid blue colour. Lime Kiln Trail cuts through a foggy forest where moss-covered ruins from a century-old lime kiln and an abandoned railroad town still remain. Rusty relics such as saw blades, bricks and glass bottles lie beside the path, reminders of the logging and mining community that once operated here. Hikers report hearing phantom footsteps and whispered voices as thick fog and a persistent mist hang over the forest, and the ruins appear and vanish like ghosts with every step. Crater Lake National Park is home to the deepest lake in the country, formed when a giant volcano collapsed and left a huge hole that filled with rain and snow. Its bright blue water comes from the fact that no rivers flow into or out of it. Only rain and snow feed the lake. Nearby, mysterious tall rock formations called pinnacles rise from old ash layers where hot gas once escaped, looking like giant stone candles. The lake also hides strange tales, including reports of a ghost ship that seems to float silently on the water and vanishes when anyone tries to get close. In addition, Clark's Nutcracker lives near this eerie and powerful place. It hides thousands of pine seeds, which help forests regrow after every wildfire. This chunky grey bird with black wings and tail preys open pine cones with its strong beak, carries up to 100 seeds in a pouch under its tongue, and buries them in secret spots miles away. They also interact with humans, sometimes stealing food from campers and picnics, earning the nickname camp robbers for snatching sandwiches and peanuts when people look away. Silver City started when a group searching for a fake mine accidentally found real gold and silver, which sparked a rush of miners to the area. The town quickly grew with streets built directly over rich mineral veins, and some buildings still stand above old mining tunnels. Rival miners fought fiercely for control of the richest mines, including a gun battle and the building of a log fort to protect a valuable claim. At its peak, the town buzzed with miners, ore mills, shops and newspapers, and it became a major hub for silver mining. The mines kept producing valuable silver for decades, but eventually the ore ran out and the town slowly emptied. Unlike many other old mining towns, Silver City's buildings never burned down and remain well preserved today. It's a time capsule where visitors can see a whole mining town, frozen just as it was when the silver ran dry. Cape Flattery is the northwesternmost point of the contiguous United States, where towering sea stacks rise like giant sentries against the wild Pacific Ocean. This point was named after a sea captain who hoped to find a safe harbour, but he was fooled by a small opening in the cliffs, hence the name Flattery. Beyond its history, the land is carved by the ocean into cliffs and sea caves that resemble doorways to mysterious underwater worlds. Meanwhile, the water around this area shifts colours like a mood ring, changing from grey and blue to green and even pink depending on the sky. Where the ocean meets the cliffs, sea otters glide between kelp beds and show the abundant marine life that defines the area. They carry their favourite tools, small rocks, under their arms and use them as anvils to crack open hard shells like clams and sea urchins. Their thick fur traps air bubbles that act like a life jacket, keeping them warm and allowing them to float easily. While resting on the surface, otters hold hands to avoid drifting apart like floating rafts that can gather as many as a small crowd. When diving for food, they close their ears and nostrils to stay dry and hold their breath for several minutes. Their teeth are shaped like rounded crushers, rather than sharp cutters, ideal for smashing tough shells without damaging their jaws. In these waters, sea otters live alongside orcas, which dominate the food chain with no natural predators. Known as killer whales, orcas earn their name from fierce hunting skills that let them catch seals, sea lions, and even large whales. Despite their fearsome reputation, these playful hunters are the largest members of the dolphin family, built for speed and strength. They use teamwork and clever tactics, such as creating waves to knock prey off ice, or briefly beaching to capture seals. Each pod communicates with its own unique set of calls, almost like distinct family languages. Their intelligence and social lives rival those of primates, and behaviours like mourning the dead and passing knowledge from generation to generation make a true ocean society. Custer started as a mining town built alongside a giant stamp mill that crushed ore from nearby gold and silver mines. To move heavy ore, a long aerial tram carried loads from the mine down the mountain to the mill, like a rusty metal conveyor belt in the sky. Despite its remote location, Custer boasted 5 saloons, 3 stores, a hotel, and a baseball team, but it never built a church, showing a town defined by work and play. When the mines dried up, people left quickly, and the town became a quiet ghost town. Now part of the land of the Yankee Fork Historic Area, Custer welcomes visitors to explore preserved buildings and old mines that tell the story of lives shaped by gold's lure. Ketchikan is a lively fishing town, famed for its rows of totem poles and colourful waterfront boardwalks. Its name, meaning thundering wings of an eagle, comes from the roar of a nearby waterfall that once rang across the area. Long before newcomers arrived, the town's original people relied on these waters and established fishing as Ketchikan's first and most enduring industry. Later, at its peak, many salmon canneries processed huge quantities of fish each year, earning the town the title Salmon Capital of the World. Meanwhile, Ketchikan's totem poles offer more than decoration. They preserve the stories and secrets of long-gone village. Today, visitors arrive from near and far, many on cruise ships, drawn to explore the town's totem poles, boardwalks, and lush rainforest surroundings. The surrounding waters also support humpback whales, massive creatures whose songs bring life and movement to the ocean. These whales have mostly black bodies, with large white patches on their flippers and bellies, a broad rounded head covered in small bumps, and long flippers that can reach about a third of their body length. In addition, they perform explosive breaches, launching themselves out of the water like giant fountains, either to communicate or simply for fun. They also use a unique hunting trick called bubble net feeding, where rings of bubbles trap fish in a floating net before the whales gulp them down. Their huge side fins create loud slaps on the water, which can serve to talk to other whales or stun prey. Occasionally, humpbacks roll onto their backs and wave their flippers like flags. While whales produce long, changing songs filled with detail, song sparrows fill the forest with similarly intricate melodies. These birds can sing over 2,000 songs in a single day, each one a unique mix that helps them defend their space. Each male learns about 10 distinct tunes and switches between them to communicate with rivals and impress potential mates. Despite their small size, they fiercely guard feeders and territory, often chasing away larger sparrows and other birds. They perform a quick, double scratch move with their feet to uncover seeds on the ground, a quirky dance known as the song sparrow samba. Unlike many species, these sparrows rarely feed in large groups and usually search for food alone or with just one or two companions. Their nests sit close to the ground, tucked under grass or low bushes, which turns them into quiet keepers of the forest floor. Some that live near people grow surprisingly tame, even learning to come when called or respond to the sound of a bell at feeders. Cornucopia began as a booming gold camp, where miners believed the hills hid riches ready to spill out like treasure from a broken chest. It takes its name from the Latin term for horn of plenty, a fitting title for a place once overflowing with gold pulled from the mountains. Built on steep slopes, Cornucopia required aerial tramways to move ore, highlighting the difficulty of life and work in this remote setting. Winters added even more danger, as huge snowslides sometimes buried entire buildings and turned daily survival into a constant struggle. As new veins were uncovered, the community repeatedly sprang back to life, rising and falling 4 separate times as fortune returned and vanished. After the final downturn, the population drifted away, leaving behind a handful of weathered structures and rusted machinery that stand like quiet reminders of its dramatic past. Cathedral Grove is a rare forest of towering Douglas fir and red cedar trees in Macmillan Provincial Park. Over time, windstorms sometimes topple these giants, and their decaying trunks become nurse logs, where new trees sprout. In addition, some trees still bear marks where indigenous people carved bark for tools and shelter. A major storm once brought down several massive trees, altering the forest's appearance, yet new growth quickly emerged. Meanwhile, northern flickers tap out drumbeats on wood to signal life among the trees. They also drum on metal objects like gutters or street signs, and their laughing calls make them some of the loudest birds in the forest. These woodpeckers spend a lot of time on the ground hunting for insects, especially carpenter ants, which they dig up with a barbed tongue twice as long as their beak. Apart from insects, they eat berries, sunflower seeds, and even poison oak leaves, showing a varied diet that changes with the seasons. When facing rivals, males perform fencing duels, pointing their bills skyward, swaying their heads, and flicking wings and tails open to flash bright colours, invisible from a distance. Flickers nest in cavities carved in dead or decaying trees, sometimes choosing a different home each year to keep things fresh. A wealthy investor from a major beer company spent his fortune building Molson in the middle of nowhere, hoping gold would be found, and the town quickly boomed to about 300 people during the gold rush. Molson's life was short and wild. Quick growth was followed by rapid decline once the mines ran dry. The townspeople moved their homes half a mile to create New Molson, but after the hotel burned down and the Great Depression struck, their hopes disappeared for good. Molson stands as a ghost town museum, where walking through old buildings feels like stepping into a frozen moment of Wild West dreams and failures. Deschutes National Forest sprawls across volcanic terrain, lakes, rivers and forests shaped by eruptions that blanketed the region in ash and lava flows. In addition, the land features lava tubes, cinder cones, and colourful patterns of black and red rock. Beyond geology, outdoor adventures abound, from hiking among lodgepole pines to paddling on alpine lakes or skiing on Mount Bachelor. Deschutes blends seamlessly into the Cascade Mountains, where snowy summits stretch into the sky. From there, these mountains formed where one tectonic plate slid under another, which forced hot magma upward and sometimes caused eruptions that reshaped the land. In fact, Mount Hood, a massive cone in the range, often puffs steam or minor eruptions, a loud reminder that the Earth is still alive here. As a result, the soil carries minerals from old lava flows, feeding forests that act like natural sponges, soaking up water and supporting rivers year-round. Just past these towering peaks lies Tumalo Falls, a rushing waterfall that keeps the mountain's wild spirit flowing. Here the water drops over a curtain of black basalt, shaped long ago when lava from nearby volcanoes cooled into solid stone. Tumalo Creek feeds the falls and carries water that cuts through volcanic rock, carving a towering canyon over time. As the seasons shift, the sound of the waterfall changes as well, sometimes soft, sometimes a powerful roar that feels like a drumbeat in the chest. In winter, the surrounding cliffs contain icy caves where frost forms unusual shapes that resemble frozen sculptures. Farther upstream, several more waterfalls remain hidden in the canyon for those who continue beyond the main falls. Leicester started as a busy railroad camp built to help steam trains climb the steep hills of Stampede Pass. The town had a roundhouse, a giant garage for trains, where engines stopped for repairs before continuing up the mountains. Railroads carried coal and logs through the thick forests, which kept the town alive. When diesel engines arrived, they no longer needed to stop, and Leicester's train-powered heartbeats slowly faded. The city that controlled the water supply blocked Leicester's only road, and after many fights with residents, the courts closed the town for good. Now the town is abandoned, with only concrete foundations and rusted remains slowly being taken over by the forest. Sawtooth National Recreation Area holds sharp mountains made mostly of sparkling pink granite that glows in the sun like a giant rock candy. These mountains formed as magma cooled well below the ground and later rose, and the resulting spires and cliffs resembled giant saw blades. Later, glaciers carved smooth lakes and sharp ridges, which gave the peaks their dramatic shapes. Beneath it all, the ground hides a fault line that can cause strong earthquakes, slowly shifting the rocks beneath your feet. Even now, snow clings to some slopes year-round, keeping spots cool and mysterious, while visitors hike, fish and camp along trails that wind through the peaks and valleys. Just down the trail, Pettit Lake offers a calm place to rest after exploring the mountains. This lake was carved by glaciers, which scooped out a basin now filled with clear, cold water. Underneath the water, glacial rocks pushed here by ice dot the lake floor and make a natural underwater obstacle course. Kenai Fjords National Park features steep fjords slicing into the coast like massive claws of ice. Along these inlets, clear, cold waters fill glacier-carved basins and mirror the towering peaks above. At the same time, glaciers crush rocks into fine powder called rock flour, tinting the water in milky turquoise shades. Far above, the Harding icefield feeds nearly 40 glaciers, some still sending tidewater icebergs into the sea. At night, camping here means drifting to sleep, with the gentle sounds of water lapping and fish splashing. Over centuries, the mountains gradually sink as glacier weight shifts and nearby tectonic plates pull the land downward. Beyond the fjords, Porcupine awaits with its wild charm and quiet trails ready for exploration. Here, porcupines have tough, sharp quills that lie flat until danger approaches, then stick out like spikes to fend off attackers. They live mostly in forests, climbing trees to eat bark and leaves, and remain hidden during the day and move mainly at night. Additionally, these animals don't travel far and often reuse the same shelters, which helps them survive in a land with bears and eagles. During mating season, males follow scents left by females and compete quietly, while mothers raise their young alone and teach them essential survival skills. Liberty started as a gold mining town where the gold was so unusual it looked like tangled wire rather than regular nuggets. The town was first called Meagersville, but was renamed Liberty to mean freedom for the miners chasing their luck. When gold ran out, most people left, but a few stayed, and the government tried to remove them over missing town records. Though almost empty, the town still feels alive with a few residents and stories of ghosts that appear in old houses, especially around spooky seasons. Stiwamus Chief is a giant granite rock, one of the largest monoliths in North America, formed by magma that cooled underground and was later revealed by glaciers carving massive cliffs. Over time, wide cracks formed its three main peaks and sharp gullies, giving the mountain the appearance of a cracked eggshell on a colossal scale. A distinctive dark line called the Black Dyke slices through the pale granite, created when fast-cooling volcanic lava squeezed through a crack long after the rock hardened. According to local legends, the mountain's name means respected elder, and it is said to have once been a giant turned to stone. Just beside this monumental rock, Shannon Falls tumbles dramatically, acting as the chief's wild companion and drawing visitors to enjoy the power and beauty of nature. It drops over 1,000 feet, the third tallest in the area, and produces a constant roar alongside the quiet rock giant. Historically, it is named after a man who settled nearby and made bricks from the clay, showing that people lived here long ago. According to legend, a two-headed sea serpent carved the falls with its winding body, and the water's path reflects the strength of nature from long ago. Fed by glacier melt, the water rushes down the cliffs fast enough to shape the rocks and create early dangers for explorers. Despite its accessibility, the pool below the falls remains risky, with cold, fast waters and slippery rocks that have caused accidents and dramatic rescues. Whitney began as a town because of logging and the railroad that shipped massive amounts of timber out. Unlike typical ghost towns built from mining, Whitney prospered on cutting trees and moving logs with a narrow railroad that stretched far into the forest. The town's large sawmill once cut giant yellow pine logs into lumber that helped build communities far beyond the Blue Mountains. Because of this, the logging industry was so busy, it supplied lumber for building far beyond the region. When the forests nearby were all cut down and the railroad stopped running, the town emptied out and eventually turned into a ghost town. Alder Lake is a man-made reservoir, created when a tall dam blocked the Nisqually River and turned a stretch of the river into a long, narrow lake. It is so large that it swallowed the small town of Elba, and in some places, the old town of Alder can still be seen when the water drops, like hidden ruins. Its winding shape and shoreline provide more miles of land water edge than a giant playground, ideal for hiking or camping along the peaceful water. Beyond its recreational appeal, the dam also generates enough electricity to power thousands of homes, a hidden powerhouse within the calm waters. Around the lake, the lively call of the black-capped chickadee can be heard. This small, fluffy bird has a round head, black cap and bib, white cheeks and grey wings. They don't walk much. Instead, they hop around trees like tiny acrobats, even hanging upside down to grab food from tricky spots. Remarkably, they have an excellent memory and hide thousands of food bits in secret spots they can recall later, almost like carrying tiny treasure maps in their heads. Chickadees also have a complex language, with up to 16 different calls, including alarms that change depending on the level of danger. Their bold and curious nature means they might even land on your hand, if you remain patient and still near their feeding spots. Sumter was once a booming gold mining town nicknamed the Queen City, filled with hotels, saloons, a railroad, and even an opera house. Giant mining dredges that gobbled up large amounts of earth, like gigantic mechanical locusts, churn the nearby riverbed in search of gold. A sudden fire wiped out nearly 100 buildings, turning the prosperous town into ruins almost overnight and starting its slow slide to ghost town status. The old railway line that once brought miners and supplies gradually fell silent, leaving Sumter feeling even more cut off and forgotten. When it stopped, an eerie silence fell, and people whispered about Joe Bush, the ghost blamed for missing tools and doors that slammed on their own. Puget Sound is a huge water system shaped by glaciers that carved long hills, steep channels, and created a mix of salty and fresh water. Its shape traps strong currents and sudden tide changes, so it behaves like a giant natural water maze. Beneath the surface, hidden undersea ridges divide the sound into separate basins, each holding different water layers and a variety of creatures. In these basins, rocky ridges and soft sediments clash with the currents, creating traps where fish and other sea life gather. At the quieter edges, the San Juan Islands rise, a cluster of rocky havens alive with dolphins, eagles and mysteries waiting to be explored. Made of rocks smashed and folded by massive forces, the islands were further shaped by glaciers that carved steep hills and smooth shorelines. Many have sandy beaches on one side and sheer cliffs on the other, a mix that keeps predator and prey guessing. Shallow bays shelter forests of giant kelp, home to colourful fish and clever octopuses that change colour to hide or warn. Life flourishes throughout the islands, where orcas and seals hunt near the shore, while bald eagles glide above. Trails winding across the islands reveal fossils of sea creatures trapped in stone, traces from a time when these rocks lay beneath the sea. Fort Rock Cave sits inside a volcanic hill, formed long ago when lava met ice and created a natural shelter for early humans. Near the entrance, a high-ceilinged hollow shields the interior from both wind and heat. Dozens of sagebrush sandals, carefully woven, were found in its layers, showing that humans once used the cave as an active home base. The Capilano suspension bridge began as a rough rope and cedar crossing built to reach the forest on the other side of the river. It connects visitors to more than just the river, with a cliff walk along canyon walls and treetop walkways that make it feel like you're walking through the air above towering trees. Beyond the trails, the park also leads to Capilano Lake, located just a short distance upstream. This man-made reservoir provides nearly half of the water that local residents drink every day. The lake sits behind the Cleveland Dam, which controls its flow and protects homes downstream. Because the water is so clean and carefully managed, it travels straight from the lake into households without extra treatment. Thick forests and cliffs surround the shoreline, formed natural barriers that help maintain its purity. Beneath the calm surface, strong currents move steadily, fed by streams flowing down from nearby mountains. In addition to supplying water, the lake serves as a quiet refuge for local wildlife, living alongside this essential human lifeline. Antelope began as a quiet ranching community, but later drew worldwide attention when a group moved in to establish their own settlement. Over the years, the town grew into a self-sufficient community, with restaurants, shops, a hotel, a private airport, and even an artificial lake. However, the situation took a dark turn as strange and dangerous events unfolded, including attempts to poison neighbours and plots targeting officials. Eventually, several members were arrested, and the group's leader was deported after a bioterror attack, and other crimes were uncovered. After these events, the commune collapsed, leaving only a handful of people behind in the town. Devil's Punch Bowl is a huge bowl carved into the coastline, formed after the roof collapsed where two sea caves met. Its red and yellow sandstone walls contrast sharply with the darker rocks on the floor, which fell from the ceiling over time. At low tide, visitors can step inside the bowl to explore tide pools full of clinging sea creatures, while at high tide, waves rush through two tunnel openings, churning the water like a giant boiling cauldron. When wind and waves strike just right, the tunnels produce eerie, shifting sounds, which may be why local tribes believed the place was haunted. As the sea crashes through the caves, bald eagles circle overhead, alert and ready. These birds use the strong ocean winds swirling inside the punch bowl to glide with little effort to save energy during long hunts. With keen eyesight and a powerful grip, they catch slippery prey quickly, although rough waves can sometimes knock their catch away. Equipped with a sharp, hooked beak, they can tear food and even break small bones, allowing them to eat every part of their prey. They mate for life and build massive nests near the punch bowl, returning each year to expand their home and raise their young together. However, they face danger when humans disturb their nesting sites, or when pollution harms the fish they depend on for food. While bald eagles dominate the skies above, below the waves, the common murray gathers in large groups, ready to dive and escape this fierce hunter. They fly underwater using their wings like aquatic jet engines, allowing them to chase fish with incredible speed and agility. On narrow cliff ledges, their uniquely pear-shaped eggs spin like tops instead of rolling, keeping safe in crowded colonies. Although they resemble penguins when standing upright, common murreys are strong flyers in the air, yet they thrive in the ocean's depths, where they are most at home. Their high-speed diving, combined with large, densely packed colonies, creates a fortress against predators, which makes group living their secret weapon. The salt water is no problem for these birds, as they have a special gland near their eyes that flushes out excess salt, so they can drink seawater without harm. Susanville started as a small mining camp in a narrow canyon, with one street that had a store and a 10-stamp mill to crush gold rocks. The miners were frustrated by the distance to the post office, so they didn't just move it, they actually stole it, along with the mailboxes and stamps, to bring it closer to their claims. On Saturday nights, the town became lively, with up to 1,000 miners crowding the street to drink, gamble, and socialise after a long work week. The town never grew big or fancy, more like a rough camp than a proper town. No theatres or saloons, just a few shops and homes focused on digging up gold. North Cascades National Park is known for its sharp peaks, dense forests, vast rivers, and more than 300 glaciers. These formed from pieces of rock that once drifted across the ocean before crashing into land and stacking together like a scattered puzzle pulled into place. Volcanic forces later added layers of heat-shaped rock, but the highest peaks stayed firm, built from old material that cooled underground. These mountains continue to shift and rise under steady pressure, so the land never fully settles, and the terrain slowly changes into a landscape that feels alive to anyone who walks across it. Among the animals that endure in this harsh setting, the wolverine stands out as a symbol of the park's fierce and wild nature. Its wide, snowshoe-like paws let it move across thick snow without sinking, almost as if it wears built-in snow boots. With this advantage, it travels alone across huge mountain areas, hunting fresh prey or scavenging leftovers from wolves or bears, and can even take down larger animals when conditions favour it. It marks huge territories to avoid others and keeps to higher, colder ground rather than warmer low spots. Its powerful jaws and claws allow it to tear through frozen meat and gnaw on bones for marrow. Each wolverine carries a unique patch of light fur on its chest, a natural marker researchers use to identify individuals. When raising young, it digs dens inside snowbanks, relying entirely on heavy winter snow to shelter its kits until spring. Just as the wolverine moves boldly through snow and ice, the western tanager brings bright colour and life to the same park's trees. In fact, this bird's bright red head and yellow body are like a small flying flame in the green forest, so it stands out even from a distance. They also catch insects mostly by picking them off leaves and twigs, but occasionally fly out quickly from a branch to grab prey mid-air. Greenhorn is Oregon's smallest city, but it has no permanent residents, which makes it a ghost town with an official city council and mayor. Its story began after gold was discovered nearby, quickly growing to include hotels, stores, saloons, a post office, and even a jail. Interestingly, one night the jail was stolen and taken to a nearby town, where it still stands today. Located at a high elevation in the mountains, Greenhorn presented a challenging environment for both miners and residents. Over time, especially after gold mining was banned during World War II, the population dwindled to zero, though cabins remain for visitors who hunt, fish, and live simply without modern utilities. The town's name may derive either from a nearby green horn-shaped landform or from inexperienced miners, known as greenhorns, who struck gold. Today it feels like a frozen-in-time museum of the gold rush era, yet it surprisingly offers modern cell phone service and internet despite being empty most of the year. Willamette Falls is the nation's second largest waterfall by volume, dropping in a wide horseshoe shape that once blocked boats and forced early travellers to carry their goods around it. Because of its power, the falls later became known as the Niagara Falls of the West, helping run early mills and even supplying energy for the country's first long-distance electric power line. Over the years, the area became a busy centre of activity where two nearby towns competed for control of boat landings and trade, until a major flood eventually destroyed one of them. Where the water flows strong, the great blue heron waits with steady grace, ready to strike. In the next instant, this bird can stand perfectly still, for minutes, and then snap forward so quickly it seems almost like a flash of lightning. In this area, it likewise uses its sharp bill to spear fish in shallow water, while also taking frogs, small rodents, and anything else it can swallow whole. They build large stick nests high in waterside trees, often gathering in colonies that resemble treetop neighbourhoods. Despite this impressive presence, they move with quiet stealth and will hold a motionless stance until the exact moment to snatch their prey. And even beyond wild riverbanks, these herons adapt well to city parks and ponds, showing they can survive nearly anywhere with steady water and reliable food. The gold rush began when a mule got stuck in the mud, leaving gold dust on its feet, which brought many miners to the area. The town grew fast from that moment, and at its peak it held around 5,000 people who lived and worked near the mines. It was first named Independence, but the name was already taken, so the town chose a new one, inspired by the tough grey rock found all around the area. People thought it would keep on growing forever, but after the gold ran out, most folks left, and the busy town became a quiet place, with only a few stubborn residents. One man once ran the entire town. He was the mayor, council, and police all at once, handling a huge job by himself. Now granite feels like a slow, quiet ghost. Some cabins and buildings remain, and visitors arrive to feel the energy of a town that once shouted with gold fever. The Columbia River Gorge was carved by the biggest floods in Earth's history, with water flowing 10 times faster than all the rivers on the planet combined. Later, giant volcanic eruptions poured lava that created tall cliffs with columns that looked like massive puzzles. Over time, glaciers and additional floods moved huge amounts of rock and shaped the cliffs and waterfalls seen today. As a result, the gorge is famous for its natural scenery, including many waterfalls, and it supports ecosystems from temperate rainforests to dry grasslands. When the wind is calm, strange quiet sounds come from the cliffs, giving visitors an eerie feeling, as if someone watches them. Further up on Crown Point, Vista House looks out over the water and cliffs, a peaceful spot to pause and observe. Built more than 100 years ago, it was designed as a rest stop for travellers on the area, which made long drives easier and more beautiful. The building is octagonal and made from grey sandstone, topped with a roof of green glazed tiles that shine in the sun like a crown. Just a short drive from Vista House is Multnomah Falls, Oregon's tallest waterfall. Water cascades down dark cliffs in 2 stages, a towering upper fall and a smaller lower drop, with a stone bridge elegantly spanning the space between. The name comes from the Multnomah, a Chinookan tribe that once lived along the Columbia River, and it translates to "those toward water." Legend says the falls were created when a young woman leapt from the cliffs to save her people, and her spirit set the water flowing for eternity. In the depths of winter, the waterfall transforms into a towering column of ice, draping nearby trees and plants in shimmering frost. Golden started as a gold mining camp, but was abandoned when miners found richer gold somewhere else. Later, a religious family bought the land and made it the only mining town in the West with 2 churches, but no saloons, so miners had to go elsewhere for a drink. A movie filmed in Golden built a fake cemetery for a scene and left it behind, and visitors still leave flowers on graves that were never real. Paranormal investigators claim the old church holds demons from witch rituals, but its door is unlocked, and anyone can enter despite warnings about angry spirits. Buncombe, one of Southern Oregon's best-kept ghost towns, sits at the meeting of 2 rivers and was first founded as a gold mining camp. Miners first dug for gold, then found silver and other metals, and the town grew to include a saloon, a store, and a post office. The name Buncombe probably comes from old slang for worthless or nonsense, which felt true after the gold ran out. Although most of the original buildings burned down over time, a few, like the post office and cookhouse, still stand thanks to local preservation efforts. To preserve the town's history, a historical society rebuilt or moved many structures, even if it meant changing the layout. Today, Buncombe draws visitors interested in history and the tough lives of the miners who lived there. In the summer months, swarms of horseflies greet visitors, giving a surprisingly real sense of life in the old mining camp. Kootenai Falls is one of the largest free-flowing waterfalls in the northwest, where the river plunges over rocky cliffs, creating a powerful rush of water. Nearby, the swinging bridge stretches high above the river. As it sways underfoot, it gives visitors an exciting way to cross close to the base of the falls. Named after the Kootenai tribe, the site is considered the heart of their world, a place where people can connect with powerful spiritual forces. Around the cliffs and river, moose carefully watch their surroundings while feeding on shrubs and aquatic plants. Despite their size, these animals move slowly, yet can cross cold rivers with surprising speed and strength. Their antlers, shed and regrown each year, resemble hand fans made of bone, used to impress others and provide protection. They tend to avoid humans by staying near water, where they remain cool in summer and find food that few other creatures can reach. Mothers guide their calves through thick forests and rocky slopes, teaching essential survival skills and ways to hide from predators. The swinging bridge allows visitors to spot these majestic animals in areas free from cars and loud noises. Nearby, the smaller but equally hardy American robin fills the forest with song, creating a gentle contrast to the quiet presence of the moose. In addition, these birds adapt well to the area's mixed forests and clearings, where they find worms, insects, fruits and berries on the ground and in trees. They have grey-brown backs, bright orange-red breasts, and white underbellies, with black or grey heads and yellow beaks, and they hop carefully through the underbrush, pausing to spot prey with sharp accuracy. During breeding season, they defend their territory loudly. Males sing to claim space and attract mates, while both parents guard their nests from predators. Meanwhile, females build nests from mud, grasses and twigs, often on tree branches, ledges, or human structures, where they lay several eggs. Some robins migrate to warmer areas in winter, whereas others remain and survive the cold by eating more berries and fruits. Cape Blanco extends out into the ocean as a flat stretch of land, rising about 200 feet above the water, with tall cliffs carved by wind and waves. Beneath the cliffs, layers of old ocean mud and sand have been pushed upward over time, and the land still rises gradually each year. Nearby, rock formations and reefs rise from the sea like underwater mountains. A thin strip of loose soil links the cape to the mainland, though it may eventually erode and turn Cape Blanco into an island. The area is home to seabirds nesting on the cliffs and small creatures living in tidal pools among the rocks. Many visitors walk the coastal trails to watch the waves crash against the cliffs and to explore the shoreline. Overlooking the cliffs, the Cape Blanco Lighthouse has guided ships safely through fog and storms for generations. Shining up to 22 miles, it is one of the strongest coastal lights, powered by an old electric motor that flashes a bright white beam every 20 seconds. The lighthouse's glass lens, shipped from France in pieces, was carefully put together on site. Now visitors can climb the spiral staircase to view the restored lens up close, which has shone reliably for over a century despite harsh coastal conditions. From here, the bright blue of the indigo bunting brings a different kind of glow to the outdoors. Males are bright blue during breeding season, while females stay plain brown, with faint streaks all year round. Their bright feathers also protect them by startling predators, allowing them to stand out only when needed and disappear when danger approaches. In summer, they eat mostly insects and spiders to get protein for raising young, and in fall and winter, they switch to seeds and berries. Meanwhile, males sing loud, cheerful songs from high perches to defend territory and attract mates. Females build nests low in shrubs or small trees, weaving grasses and spiderwebs to create a cosy cup for their eggs. At night, indigo buntings migrate alone, using stars to navigate, a secret skill that helps them reach winter homes safely. Whitehorse Falls drops about 15 feet into a clear blue punch bowl that looks like nature's own swimming pool. It flows out of a narrow trough, giving the water a fast, energetic jump before it tumbles down. You can hear the waterfall from the parking lot, which makes it one of the most accessible spots to experience the power of moving water. The area around the falls is covered with mossy rocks and framed by tall Douglas fir trees that seem to hold the water in a green embrace. Fallen logs cross the water near the falls, forming natural bridges and framing ideal spots for photos. Unlike bigger waterfalls, Whitehorse Falls has a peaceful charm and quiet power that invites visitors to slow down and take it all in. Not far from here, the hammering sounds of the hairy woodpecker can be heard through the trees. This rhythmic tapping fits perfectly with the calm of Whitehorse Falls, which adds life to the peaceful forest soundscape. They climbs tree trunks using strong feet and stiff tail feathers that act like a prop, which lets it peck sideways or even upside down. It uses its long, sharp bill to drill into bark and dead wood to reach insects, especially wood-boring beetle larvae. Its skull contains special shock absorbers that protect the brain from repeated pounding. Hairy woodpeckers are cavity nesters. Both parents dig the nest, take turns incubating eggs, and feed their chicks. This species favours mature forests with large trees, though it sometimes visits backyards to eat suet or seeds from feeders. Rising 800 feet above the ocean, Cape Perpetua is the highest point on the coast that can be reached by car, forming a massive wall above the shoreline. Long ago, sailors saw the headland from their ships, but were forced back by storms for days, so they named it Perpetua, after being stuck facing the same cliff. Nearby Devil's Churn is a narrow crack in the rocks, where waves crash from both ends, sending water shooting high into the air. Close by, the spouting horn acts like a natural geyser as waves rush into an underwater cave and force water out through a hole at the top. Beyond the crashing waves, the cliffs are a perfect spot to watch gulls soaring and diving. During mating season, they return to the same steep cliff ledges, build simple nests of grass and seaweed, and reunite with their lifelong partner. With loud calls and bold behaviour, they fiercely guard their eggs from intruders. When feeding, they swoop to catch fish, scavenge dead sea creatures, and even steal food from other seabirds. These clever birds drop shellfish from high above onto rocks or pavement to crack them open. Thanks to strong stomach acid, they can eat entire crabs, shells and all, digesting bones safely. Whistler, originally called London Mountain, took its name from the loud whistling calls of local marmots, squirrel-like animals that sound like birds warning of danger. The Peak to Peak gondola holds world records for longest unsupported cable car span and highest above the ground, where it glides between mountains as if flying without wings. The first quadruple backflip on skis was pulled off right here, proving that this place is not just for fun, but also pushing the limits of extreme sports. Whistler's nightlife and local bars carry wild stories, including a taxidermied horse named Dusty that once rode secretly to a liftee shack, which adds local humour and mystery. From mountain thrills to cascading waters, Brandywine Falls awaits. The waterfall drops from a cliff that seems far too large for the creek flowing over it, a hint at massive floods long ago that shaped the valley. Rocks themselves are quite noticeable, with boxy shapes formed when lava cooled rapidly against ice, almost like nature's own puzzle pieces locked in place. For those seeking adventure, only the brave and steady hikers follow the hidden, rough path to the base of the falls, where steep, rope-aided sections test their skill and courage. The falls have a quirky story behind their name. It comes from a lost bet over the waterfall's height, where the prize was a bottle of brandy. Loser's name stuck forever. And for a final curious twist, the area sometimes experiences red snow, caused by tiny algae that turn the white snow pink, like a sprinkle of strawberry on vanilla ice cream. Spirit Lake sits behind a natural dam made of volcanic debris that blocked its original outlet, causing the water level to rise sharply and creating a unique, unstable situation. This blockage is made of loose gravel, sand and large rocks, which could collapse suddenly and cause a massive flood downstream, a risk engineers actively watch. It once had thousands of tree trunks floating on its surface from a massive eruption nearby, and some still float or lie preserved underwater like wood frozen in time. The area has a sealed clay bottom sitting on a layer of gravel that could suddenly drain it if disturbed. The unusual lake bed and the natural dam make it a puzzle for scientists and engineers trying to predict what might happen next. Visitors swim, fish and boat here, but the area holds a quiet warning beneath its calm surface. The mystery around the water and the stories tied to the lake lead naturally into the strange behaviour of birds like the western grebe, which survive in these waters. These birds often stick one leg out behind them while floating, shaking off water and tucking their foot under a wing to stay warm. A clever trick, a bit like drying socks by a campfire. Their legs are placed far back on their bodies, turning them expert swimmers and divers, though on land they can be clumsy, sometimes stumbling or falling. In the water, however, this setup gives them speed and agility. During courtship, pairs perform a remarkable rushing dance, running side by side across the water's surface, with necks curved like runners sprinting on a watery track, a rare and captivating display. They spend most of their time in the water, diving to catch fish and using their lobed toes like flippers for stealthy hunting in the lake's clear waters. When raising chicks, parents even carry their young on their backs, offering protection and warmth, a bit like a floating taxi service. As the grebes master the water's surface, the great grey owl takes over in the forest, ruling the night with its silent flight and keen hunting skills. In addition, it has the thickest velvety feathers and the longest feather edges of any species, which allow its flight to be quieter than anything else and let it approach prey without a sound. Almost like night vision, its face acts like a giant radar dish, channeling sound to its ears so it can detect tiny rodents moving beneath snow, essentially seeing through sound. Moreover, it does not build its own nest. Instead, it occupies broken treetops or abandoned nests and requires open spaces nearby for hunting. From these perches, it waits and drops directly onto prey buried beneath snow, a surprise attack that rarely fails, but carries risk if other predators notice the disturbance. Its camouflage mimics tree bark, rendering it nearly invisible while resting or hunting, which helps it avoid danger and sneak up on prey alike. Interestingly, this species has a mostly silent mating ritual, with males wooing females by delivering food quietly rather than calling loudly, a subtle romance under the forest canopy. Stretching about 40 miles, the Oregon Dunes are one of the largest sand dune areas in the region. The sand itself comes from mountains, where rocks broke down, were carried by rivers, and then spread along the coast by ocean currents and wind. Behind the dunes, lakes can appear and disappear when sand blocks streams and rainwater collects in hidden spots. Decades ago, government workers planted European beach grass to stop the sand from moving, but it worked too well, harming the natural ecosystem that relies on shifting sand. In some places, underground water saturates the sand to create quicksand, which can trap legs and become dangerous when the tide rises. Despite the dangers, the moving dunes are a playground for off-road vehicles and hikers, while nearby, dunlins run along the shore looking for food. They are nicknamed sewing machine birds because they jab their curved bills into wet sand so quickly it looks like a sewing machine needle. Interestingly, their bills have taste buds along the entire length, allowing them to sense marine worms hidden in the sand. Dunlins are proficient at hunting. They dig into the sand like tiny shovels to uncover insects and worms. Their feathers change with the seasons. In winter, they are grey and white for camouflage, while in spring, their backs turn rusty red and their bellies black for mating. During migration, they travel in large groups between northern breeding grounds and warmer winter areas, stopping at mudflats to rest and feed. They build simple nests in shallow scrapes, and the chicks can run and find food shortly after hatching, guided by their parents. Unlike birds that live in trees or open fields, they can survive in shifting sand and mud, depending on their speed and clever bills to survive. Though dunlins rely on speed and keen senses for survival on the coast, the great horned owl uses stealth and strength under the cover of darkness. Its feathers are so soft that they silence its flight, allowing it to sneak up on prey like a shadow in the night. This owl's signature ear tufts don't help it hear better. They might actually confuse other animals or signal threats. Despite being powerful hunters, they sometimes grab prey much bigger than themselves, including skunks and even other raptors. Unlike many birds, great horned owls start nesting very early, sometimes while snow still lingers, giving their young a head start. Their eyes don't move in their heads, so they swivel their necks almost fully around to see in every direction without moving their bodies. In a way, they are like tiny, silent helicopters with night vision goggles, hovering and spinning to hunt unseen in the Oregon dunes. Craters of the moon formed when molten rock poured from cracks in the earth and left behind a huge field of black stone that looks frozen in motion. The surface shows two distinct textures. Smooth, flowing stretches contrast with broken, sharp areas that can cut a person's feet. Near certain craters, rare blue volcanic glass called Blue Dragon appears, created when molten rock cooled almost instantly. A massive fissure, the Great Rift, stretches over 50 miles and reveals where magma once pushed toward the surface. Visitors have reported strange lights and sounds, which add an eerie sense of life to this otherworldly place. If that seems wild, wait until one sees the caves below. The lava tubes are empty tunnels left behind when molten rock drained away beneath a hardened crust. In here, lava once dripped from ceilings and froze into jagged stalactites, like shark teeth ready to bite. Plant roots have pushed through the roof over time, causing sections to collapse and create openings to the sky, while in the deepest corners, ice stays all year, fed by water that turns solid in cold drafts. With a permit in hand, one can step inside and chase shadows through tunnels that twist and wind far underground. A hidden world carved by fire, waiting to be explored. Flathead Lake, the largest natural freshwater lake west of the Mississippi, holds more water than many small countries. Every few years, rivers and mountain streams refill the lake, completely refreshing its waters. Visitors can often see to the bottom, and it remains one of the clearest and most pristine lakes in the region, even though people live nearby. The lake even creates its own ecosystem and local weather, with winds that make it a surprisingly good place for sailing. Within this setting, the American coot appears, a lively floater that turns its currents into a family playground. Instead of flying right away, they create a noisy water runway with their feet splashing, which looks like a wild dance before taking off. They have one of the most unusual parenting tricks. Some females sneak their eggs into other coots' nests, but the parents can spot and kick out these fake chicks. They act tough and loud, constantly squawking and defending their turf, unlike the usual quiet waterbirds you might expect. Boise National Forest covers over 2.5 million acres, mostly built on a giant granite formation called the Idaho batholith, which shapes the rocky peaks and ridges around. Scattered throughout are natural hot springs, where warm water bubbles to the surface, and locals say strange whispers and eerie sounds sometimes linger. Nearby, old trails once used for logging and mining now guide hikers toward quiet corners and hidden views. Among the mountains lie many lakes formed from melted glaciers long ago, sitting like clear mirrors, sometimes frozen and untouched for miles. From all this, the forest flows naturally into the Boise Mountains, where the terrain sharpens and stories of the wild grow even wilder. These are made mostly of giant granite and rocks that cooled slowly under the earth, like a giant stone cake baked underground. The slopes are full of steep ridges and narrow canyons carved by rivers that slice through the earth like nature's knives. You can find a rare plant, Sacagawea's bitterroot, growing only in this area, like a secret garden in the wild. Some say strange lights float above the treetops at night, sparking tales of flying visitors no one can explain. The Boise Mountains have over 70 sharp peaks, so many it feels like the mountains keep jumping up to touch the sky. Winter turns one part into a playground for skiers, where the snow packs hard, but the wild still waits just beyond the trails. Tongass, the largest national forest in the country, is shaped by islands, fjords and glaciers, carved over centuries by relentless ice. The land beneath is a mix of limestone caves and granite rocks, shaped by water and ice working together like a giant sculptor. Hot springs still bubble up, powered by heat from far underground, where old volcanoes once burned. It is packed with huge trees, some holding more wood than the buildings in a city block, like nature's wooden skyscrapers. Wildlife here is wild and raw, with bears that eat from rivers full of salmon, producing one of the most intense feeding frenzies on Earth. This stretch of land slowly rises into steep cliffs where mountain goats make their risky homes. Their hooves are like built-in climbing shoes, with hard shells and soft pads that let them grip tiny cracks and stay steady on slippery rocks. Mountain goats dig through snow and soil to reach mineral licks that supply vital nutrients, and they also eat small amounts of seaweed or kelp along coastal cliffs to round out their diet. Down in the valleys below, salmon battle upstream in massive numbers through the streams of America's salmon forest. Their journey is not only about survival. After they spawn and die, their bodies act as strong fertilizer that provides almost 70% of the nitrogen in nearby trees. Because of this, these nutrients can move more than 500 yards from the water, so they end up feeding not just fish, but whole forests, turning the area into a natural recycling system. At the same time, bears and eagles take leftover salmon into the woods and drop bits across the ground, which helps many other animals stay alive. Fallen trees create small pools that they use as safe places to rest and lay eggs, so what looks like simple debris becomes a crucial part of their long journey. Unlike most fish, salmon spawn only once and then die, yet their final act feeds at least 50 species and strengthens the entire food chain. Payette Lake formed when glaciers carved a large basin in the mountains that later filled with meltwater, which functioned as a giant natural bowl collecting runoff. Because surrounding rocks filter out most sediments, the water stays very clear, almost like looking through glass. Long ago, volcanic forces shaped its floor and shoreline, and hardened lava under the water still affects its bottom today. Throughout the year, people come to enjoy a wide range of activities: boating, fishing, ice skating, and even paddleboarding when the surface freezes. At times, lightning storms over the lake send flashes that reflect on the water, creating an eerie effect. Some say it seems like the it pulses with life. Amid the serene waters of the lake, the colourful Stella's jay stands out as a spirited presence in the surrounding woodlands. Its head bears a dark crest, while its body and wings glow with rich blue tones barred in black, a distinctive mix of shadow and sky. The jay eats a wide variety of food: seeds, nuts, berries, insects, and sometimes small animals, eggs or nestlings of other birds. It often hides extra nuts or seeds in hidden spots, which may later sprout into new trees. They are talented mimics, copying sounds from hawks, other animals, and even human-made noises to warn of danger or scare off rivals. When threatened, these jays may band together to drive away potential predators, showing surprising teamwork among birds often seen alone. Some individuals live a surprisingly long life. The oldest recorded Steller's jay reached at least 16 years and 1 month. As they patrol the tree line, horned grebes command the open waters below. During breeding season, they show a vivid look with black heads, red necks, and fluffy golden horns raised during courtship, while in winter, their grey and white feathers help them disappear into the water. With legs set far back on their bodies, they are awkward on land but move like torpedoes in water, diving far and covering long distances while hunting fish and insects. To handle their meal of slippery fish and hard-bodied prey, horned grebes swallow some of their own feathers. These form a dense plug in the stomach that traps fish bones until safe digestion. They are often mistaken for ducks because of their size and shape, but they have pointy beaks and lobed toes instead of webbed feet. Lithia Park started as a small 8-acre area meant for shows and community events, and quickly grew into a place focused on health and relaxation because of special mineral water nearby. Before it became a park, the area had pig pens and sawmills, which were cleared out to make a space that's part nature and part escape for those who want to walk, picnic, or fish. People say that at night, a mysterious blue mist appears with strange lights and sounds like whispers and cold spots, and it is linked to the ghost of a girl who died long ago, as if the park keeps secrets from the past. From the peaceful trails and quiet corners rises the American kestrel, a small falcon that lives in the park and adds life to this unique spot. Small as they seem, these are the tiniest falcons in the region, with feet strong enough to catch prey twice their size. Perched on cliffs or power lines, they watch the ground carefully and dive before prey has a chance to escape. During courtship, males perform dramatic aerial displays, soaring high and diving while calling loudly to defend territory and attract mates. With markings that look like eyes on the back of their heads, kestrels trick predators into striking from behind instead of the face or neck. Chicks grow quickly, leaving the nest in about a month, while parents continue feeding them until they can hunt independently. With keen eyesight, kestrels can spot grasshoppers from far away, and most of their diet consists of insects such as crickets, dragonflies, and beetles. As they glide overhead, the trees reveal a different kind of activity, where acorn woodpeckers work together to stash acorns for the seasons ahead. In fact, they drill thousands of tiny holes in dead tree limbs or even wooden poles and put acorns into each one, which forms a huge shared pantry that can hold tens of thousands of acorns. Unlike most birds, they live in large families where several males and females share both mates and nests, all raising their chicks together. To aid in their work, they have a special foot setup with 2 toes facing forward and 2 backward, like a birdie climbing clamp, which helps them hang tight while tending their food stash. Rather than digging for bugs, they mostly grab insects from the surface and rely on their acorn hoards for winter. They even use man-made structures like fence posts and buildings for storage. Their noisy waka waka call not only sounds like a chatty crowd, but also helps keep the team coordinated when defending their precious acorn vault. This is the Pacific Northwest region of North America, a land of hidden wonders and remarkable architectural marvels. Now, if you don't want to miss the most hidden places of the island, check out this video.